Today I thought I'd do a video on our saltwater system for our pool and tell you what some of the advantages and disadvantages are of having a saltwater system. We've had our pool for going on 14 years now, and we're just coming off a heat wave, 95 to 100 degree temperatures, and as you can see, the pool is crystal clear. A saltwater system uses a chlorine generator to take the salt that you put in the pool and separate the sodium chloride into usable chlorine for the pool. It makes it very easy on the skin and the eyes and the hair. It's not like a harsh chlorine that you put in the pool. And some of the disadvantages of using chlorine, tablets or powder or liquid, is that it uses it'll bring your pH down, and you'll have to use alkalinity up, and it really messes with your pool chemistry. The saltwater system, on the other hand, balances the system out and pretty much leaves your pH neutral, which is a huge advantage, especially when you have temperature swings. So you can see, like, even off, we had an inch of rain yesterday and we had 100-degree weather the day before that, and right now we still have plenty of free chlorine. I can show a test strip in a little bit and just show you how well it works. No algae, no nothing. Now, we had this pool installed back in 2006, and last year we had a new liner put in it, and the salt cell last year went. So what I did is I purchased a new salt cell last year towards the end of the year, but the controller also went bad. So the controller lasted as long as we had the pool, which is a really long time. That was the second salt generator we had with the control panel, so I purchased the third one at the end of last summer. So this year I had a new control panel and a new salt cell, and I'll show you all that over by the pool equipment, which is behind the diving board back there. But anyway, towards the end of last summer and the beginning of this summer, I was using chlorine powder and tablets, and what a nightmare. If you could have seen the pool before I had the saltwater system working, I mean, I was brushing it probably every day, every other day. I was shocking it every 2 to 3 days, and that was, the water would look okay, but it was, there was algae always forming, and the water just didn't have really good clarity. I mean, right now it looks like it's just purified water. So I put the saltwater system in, I installed it myself probably just over a week ago, and literally overnight the water looked amazing. I mean, I had been putting chlorine up until that point. I haven't put chlorine in over a week. We've had rain in between some really hot weather, and the pool just looks phenomenal. So I can't say enough about a saltwater system, and we've always used the saltwater system except for last year and the beginning of this year. So I know, trying to balance it with the chlorine, and balancing with the alkalinity and all that kind of stuff I never really had to do with the saltwater system. So that's one of the huge advantages of the saltwater system. So the costs are the only downside to a saltwater system. Initially, the controller that I bought, you can buy a package, but because I had bought the salt cell last year and the controller this year, I spent around $450 each. So the saltwater cell, it's a 5-unit cell for like a 24,000 gallon pool. That costs $450, and the control panel, which is a D40, that cost $450. They're both made by Resilience, which is an excellent brand. That was what we originally had in the pool. It was just a different name back then. So the name of it now, currently in 2019, is Resilience. The control panel is a D40, and the actual salt generator, which I'll show you over by the pool equipment, was also $450. So your initial cost, yeah, it's $900, but if you see how fast you spend a couple $100, which I've already done this year on chlorine and alkalinity up and pH up and all the other chemicals you normally put in, and running back and forth to the pool store and having them check your pool water. You don't have to do anything when you put this in. It's pretty much once you put this salt system in, this is the way it's always looked when we had it before, and I never knew how hard it was to balance a pool with chlorine before our salt system went last summer. So anyway, I'll just give you an example of the pool strips and how much chlorine's in there. We had over an inch of rain last night, and I'll just show you a test strip here with the pool water, and it's actually really high. It's actually too high. Now with the salt water system, you can actually adjust how much chlorine you're generating. So I'll show you the control panel. It has an up and down for the chlorine generation. It tells you whether you have enough salt in the pool or not, which is really nice. The old control panel didn't do that. You had to test it with test strips to see how much salt it is. So here's a test strip before we put it in the pool, and then dipping it in. Now you can see the green and the purple. So that the top colors are total chlorine, which is green, and you can see it right here next to the test strip. And the second one, the purple, is your free chlorine. So we're pretty much off the chart, and you can adjust that down. I've just been leaving it on 100% right now because it's only been on for a week, but I'll probably turn that down to like 80% because, you know, you don't want too high of a chlorine value in the pool. So I'll play with that. But just to give you an idea how well the system works, we'll walk over to the control panel and I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so here's my pool equipment. It's pretty simple. I used to have a pool heater and all that, but got rid of that, and it's a pretty simple setup now. Also, when we had the liner replaced, I got rid of the deep end drain. We had a leak in the underground, and it was just easier to get rid of the deep end drain. And from what the pool companies are telling me these days, they normally don't put a pool drain in. So you can see about how far away the pool is from the pool equipment. And what I have here is your timer on the left, and the control panel, the D40 salt system control panel on the right, which is right here. So this is the control panel. It lifts up, and then you can see what you have here. Right now on the very left, that's your output of your chlorine. That's 100% chlorine, and then you can see what the salt level is there. If it's in the middle, you're good, and that's what we got. So you got a bunch of different controls. You can set timer for how much chlorine you want to generate a day, or how much percentage you want to make a day. So initially you have to put salt in the pool, obviously. That's what you're using, salt. But once you put the salt in and you get the right amount, it's generally between 3,000 and 4,000 parts per million, and you can barely taste that. So this is the salt cell right here. This unit right here is the salt cell, and it has 5 fins in it, and it's hooked up to the control panel, you can see there, and it turns on and off with the pump. So this will not run without the pool pump, and you don't want it to run without the pool pump because it'll burn out. This unit right here is a flow switch. It just makes sure the water's flowing, and that also ties into the D40 control panel. So it's making sure that you have flow before it turns on the salt system generator. This hooks up, the panel hooks up to your 220 on your pump, but it converts it down to a much lower voltage. So the voltage is all safe in there. There's not going to be any issue. And that pretty much is electrolysis. The salt goes through those plates, and it separates the salt, the sodium chloride, and the chlorine. So you're getting the sodium chloride, you get chlorine after it goes through there. And the best part about this whole system is that not only does it make a natural chlorine that's easy on the skin and doesn't change your pool chemistry, every gallon of water that goes through that salt cell right here is being shocked. So if there's any algae any algae that makes it through your pump and your filter and goes through there, it's being shocked. So everything returning to the pool is dead and clean, and you won't get any more growth. So, you know, I think part of the problem was before, without the salt generator, is, you know, you start to build up algae in your filter, and then it starts getting recirculated into your pool, and then you start getting little patches growing here and there, and there's no way to get rid of it. So that's the main benefit of having the salt generator. And in my opinion, it's, even if it's the same cost as chlorine over time, it is just so well worth never ever having to deal with cleaning the pool, worrying about algae, going to the pool store, waiting a half an hour to get a water test, or dropping it off and coming back, and then them telling you all the stuff you need to buy, and then it ends up still being $100 or whatever every time you go. So maybe on a smaller pool or an above ground pool, you can get away with chlorine no problem and not have any issues. We're in Pennsylvania, so we get a lot of different weather, you know, from hot to cold springs, and, you know, hot summers, and, you know, we shut down probably in the middle of September. But I think for the most part, if you decide to go with saltwater system, you're going to be incredibly happy. There's no brushing, there's no cleaning. That pool robot you see in the pool, there's the original one that came with the pool. It still works fine. And in fact, I really wasn't using that when we had the low end drain. So it was actually put away for probably like 8 years, and I didn't even think it would work. I pulled it out last year and started using it after we had the new liner put in, because we don't have the deep end drain. And that works fantastic for just cleaning the deep end and whatnot. We don't get many leaves in the pool, but it does pick up, you know, the silt, sand, and any small debris, bugs, and that type of stuff. And I put that in, you know, once or twice a week for maybe 4 or 5 hours, and that's it. And you don't have, I don't have to scoop, I don't have to brush, nothing. So if you're thinking about a saltwater system, if you're thinking about getting a new pool, I know a lot of people that don't have salt systems, and I think they'd be much happier with a salt system. So consider it. And, you know, again, the main advantages are eliminates the needs for most chemicals. You know, you still, like on a liner pool like this, you're not really concerned about alkalinity, but on a concrete pool, you're more concerned about alkalinity. But again, because the salt water system balances out your water, you're not going to always be going acidic. You'll be in the middle, so it's not going to hurt your pool that way. Now, some people would say, well, what about the salt? You know, it's a little more corrosive, and, you know, will it hurt my equipment, or will it hurt a concrete pool? I don't think so. That's my own personal opinion after having the pool for 14 years. Now, I can't say for a concrete pool, but as long as you keep, you know, your alkalinity and your acidity at the proper levels, this salt, the amount of salt you put in the pool is so low that it's not going to hurt anything. It hasn't hurt my pump, or the filter over there is 13, 14 years old. That's the original DE filter. That works fine. The pump I changed a couple times, but it had nothing to do with the saltwater system. It just burned out. So all in all, I would consider it. I installed the saltwater system myself, so it really wasn't that expensive. You know, it was $900 for the 2 parts, and pretty much I was just replacing what was already there. Now, if you're buying a whole system, yeah, you're going to probably spend $1,000, and probably have to get somebody installed if you can't do it yourself. So it's going to be a little more money. But if you're doing it with a new pool, I would definitely recommend it for sure. The salt cell will probably last 7 years. I've probably got 8 years out of mine, the first one. And if you take care of it, I mean, you really should take the pool panel, the controller off, and take the salt cell out and bring them inside in the wintertime. That's what I didn't do initially for like the first 5 years. And I think I would have got even better performance out of the control panel longer. It burned out last year, so I got like 12, 13 years out of it. So I think, you know, I'll bring the controller in this year, and the salt system cell, I'll bring that in this year, and that way you don't have any issues over the winter with it. And all in all, you just want to consider what the difference is between the amount of chemicals you're going to be putting in and every year, you know, over 7 years compared to what a, you know, a saltwater system will do, and how much time you'll spend going to a pool store back and forth and having them test your water, or buying additional chemicals and algicides, and there's so many different things you try to put in your pool, and when it doesn't look good, believe me, I know. So last summer was a nightmare trying to do this without the saltwater system, and literally just putting the new system on, I mean, the water cleaned up amazingly. So I can't say enough about a saltwater system. I'm sure there's some downsides as far as, you know, initial cost, and you know, if there are any slight wear and tear on your equipment because you're using salt in the water, but I haven't seen that. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment, and if I think of anything else, I'll post them in my comments under the video. Thanks again.